The Salvath Empire had conquered hundreds of planets across the galaxy. Their warships were powerful, their armies unstoppable. No species had ever resisted them for long. When their long-range scanners detected a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system, they assumed it would be another easy victory. Commander Xiron stood on the bridge of his flagship, Dominator, watching the holographic display of Earth. "Primitive life forms," he muttered. "They haven't even left their own planet properly. This will be simple." His second-in-command, Captain Vrax, nodded. "Shall we send the usual demand for surrender?" Xiron smirked. "No need. We will arrive in their orbit, show them our power, and they will bow like all the others." The Salvath fleet, consisting of 5 massive warships and a dozen smaller cruisers, entered hyperspace, heading straight for Earth. It was supposed to be a routine mission, just another step in the Empire's endless expansion. But something went wrong the moment they entered the Sol system. A strange interference. As soon as the fleet exited hyperspace near the edge of the solar system, alarms blared across every ship. Control panels flickered, and strange energy readings appeared on the screens. "Commander, our navigation systems are malfunctioning," an officer reported. "Our shields are fluctuating," another shouted. Xiron frowned. "What's causing it?" We don't know. The energy signature is unknown." Xiron's eyes narrowed. No empire in the galaxy used technology like this. Could it be a natural phenomenon, or something worse? "Maintain course," he ordered. "We are the Salvath. No force in the universe can stop us." But as they pushed further into the solar system, the problems grew worse. Communications became distorted. Weapons systems flickered in and out. Some crew members reported hearing whispers in their minds, though the ship's sensors detected nothing. And then, as they neared Earth's orbit, the real nightmare began. The silent destruction. Without warning, the smallest cruiser in the fleet, Striker 9, vanished. One moment, it was flying in formation, and the next, it was simply gone. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where it had been. "Where did they go?" Xiron demanded. We don't know," a technician stammered. "It's as if they were erased from existence." Before anyone could react, another cruiser disappeared. Then another. The bridge fell into chaos. Officers shouted, trying to make sense of what was happening, but there were no explanations. No enemy ships. No weapons fire. Just a silent, invisible force erasing their fleet ship by ship. "Full retreat," Xiron roared. "Get us out of here. Now." The surviving ships turned and fled at full speed, desperately trying to escape the strange force that had taken their comrades. But something followed them. Something unseen. The stars around them twisted, and time itself seemed to stretch. The whispers in their minds grew louder. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the interference stopped. The remaining ships, less than half of the original fleet, found themselves drifting at the edge of the solar system. Systems were back online, but the damage was done. They had lost ships, crew members, and their pride. For the first time in the history of the Salvath Empire, an invasion had failed before it even began. The Emperor's fury. Back on the Salvath homeworld, Emperor Zoreth listened to the report in silence. His golden eyes burned with anger as he stared at Commander Xiron, who knelt before him in shame. "You lost 7 ships," the Emperor said slowly, his voice dangerously calm. "And you have no explanation." Xiron bowed his head. "Your Majesty, I swear, it was not an enemy fleet. It was something else. Something we do not understand." The Emperor clenched his fists. "Do you expect me to believe that a primitive world destroyed your ships with no weapons, no resistance?" Xiron hesitated. It was as if the universe itself refused to let us near that planet. For a moment, the Emperor said nothing. Then he turned to his advisors. "Send a second fleet, a larger one. This time, we will not simply approach, we will take Earth." The court fell silent. No one dared to argue. No one dared to question the emperor's will. But deep in the shadows of the palace, an old historian shivered. He had seen records of this before. He had read the warnings from ancient civilizations that no longer existed. And he knew the truth. Earth was off limits. And those who ignored that rule never returned. The halls of the Salvath Imperial Palace were silent, filled with the tension of failure. Emperor Zoreth sat on his golden throne, his piercing eyes locked on the holographic display of Earth, a primitive planet, untouched by the galaxy's great empires. Yet his fleet had suffered a humiliating defeat without a single battle. Ships had vanished, their crews lost. And worst of all, there was no explanation. The emperor turned toward High Scholar Varen, one of the oldest historians of the empire. "Tell me, scholar, have you ever heard of a force capable of doing this?" Varen hesitated, his long gray fingers trembling slightly. "Your Majesty, there is something in the records, but it is old. Very old." "Speak." The scholar took a deep breath and waved his hand over the control panel. An ancient document appeared, glowing in front of the emperor and his advisors. The text was written in a language long dead, but the translation was clear. "Do not approach the Sol system. Earth is off limits. If you value your existence, stay away." A cold silence filled the chamber. The emperor's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. "Who wrote this?" Zoreth asked. Varen's voice was barely above a whisper. "The Cathari, the lost civilization." The name alone sent shivers through the room. The Cathari had been an ancient race, powerful and wise. They had ruled large parts of the galaxy before suddenly vanishing without a trace. No one knew what had happened to them. "The Cathari were explorers," Varen continued. "They traveled farther than any species before them. They mapped the stars, studied black holes, and catalogued every life form they encountered. But then, they found Earth." The emperor leaned forward. "And no one knows," Varen admitted. "They sent a fleet, much like ours. They never returned." The next message from the Cathari Empire was this warning. After that, their civilization collapsed. The advisors murmured in disbelief. A mighty empire reduced to ruins. Could Earth be responsible? It seemed impossible. Zoreth clenched his jaw. "Superstition," he muttered. "The Cathari probably destroyed themselves. We are stronger than they ever were." But what if they were right? One of his generals dared to ask. "What if Earth is dangerous?" The emperor's eyes burned with fury. "There is only one way to find out." A second fleet. Within days, the Salvath Empire assembled a new invasion force. This fleet was 5 times larger than the first, equipped with the most advanced technology known to the galaxy. Admiral Rethar, one of the Empire's most ruthless commanders, was placed in charge. He stood before his warriors, his black armor gleaming under the harsh lights of the warship Eclipse. "Our empire does not fear the unknown." Rethar's voice echoed through the command deck. "Whatever force stopped the first fleet will not stop us. We will take Earth, no matter the cost." The warriors roared in agreement. The fleet departed, disappearing into hyperspace. But something was waiting for them. The distortion. The Salvath fleet emerged from hyperspace just outside Earth's orbit. Immediately, their instruments went haywire. The sensors detected nothing, then everything, then nothing again. Time itself seemed to stutter. "Admiral, our readings are unstable," a technician reported. "Adjust scanners," Rethar commanded. "Find out what's interfering." But before they could, the fleet's flagship, Stormbringer, vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Panic spread through the fleet. What's happening? Another ship disappeared, then another. Rethar's heart pounded. Retreat. Get us out of here. The fleet turned, engines roaring. But the stars around them flickered, shifting as if space itself was bending. The whispers began, soft at first, then growing louder. Go back. Leave this place. Rethar clenched his fists. Who's speaking? No answer, only the feeling of something watching them, studying them. One by one, the ships continued to disappear until only Eclipse remained. Then, as suddenly as it began, the distortion ended. The flagship was drifting alone at the edge of the solar system. Earth remained below, untouched, as if nothing had happened. Admiral Rethar, shaking with fear, activated the emergency beacon. When his ship limped back to that salve of homeworld, he expected punishment. Instead, the Emperor demanded answers. Rethar knelt before the throne, his voice hoarse. "Your Majesty, we never saw an enemy. No weapons, no ships, just something, a force beyond our understanding." The Emperor's anger faded, replaced by something far worse: fear. Then, a transmission arrived. The surviving data from the fleet's black box had been decrypted. The recording played across the chamber, a voice from the darkness. It was not human. It was not alien. It was something else. "You were warned." The message ended. The Emperor rose from his throne, his expression unreadable. "Prepare a council meeting," he ordered. "We must decide our next move." Deep in his mind, however, he already knew. Earth was beyond them. And something, or someone, was protecting it. The Salvath Empire was in chaos. The Second Fleet, the most powerful armada ever sent against a single world, had vanished just like the first. Only one ship, Eclipse, had returned, carrying a warning from an unknown force. "You were warned." Emperor Zorath stood in the Grand War Chamber, surrounded by his top generals, scientists, and scholars. The holographic map of the galaxy flickered before them, displaying Earth's location. A small, insignificant planet, yet something was protecting it. The Emperor's gaze burned with fury. "We are the rulers of the stars. No world is beyond our reach." His voice echoed in the chamber. "And yet, twice now, we have failed. I will not allow this humiliation to continue." The council remained silent. They had seen the recordings. The ships hadn't been attacked. They had simply disappeared. No energy readings, no signs of battle, just an emptiness that swallowed them whole. "Perhaps we should leave this world alone," suggested High Scholar Viren carefully. "There are forces we do not understand." The Emperor's expression darkened. Superstition does not rule the Empire. Facts do. He turned to his chief scientist, Dravik. "What did we recover from the data logs?" Dravik swallowed nervously. "Very little, Your Majesty. The ship's systems failed at random. Time and space itself seemed to shift around them. And then, they were gone." He hesitated. "There is one thing, though." "Speak." Dravik took a deep breath. In the last moments before the ships disappeared, they all recorded the same anomaly. An energy signature unlike anything in the known universe. It wasn't an attack, but it was watching them. A chill spread through the room. The idea of something observing them, toying with them, was unsettling. The Emperor's fists clenched. "Then we must understand what we are facing. We will send a probe. No ships, no soldiers, just a machine." The order was given. The probe, Eye of Salvath, was launched toward Earth. It was designed to be undetectable, able to scan and record from a safe distance. But the Empire was about to learn that Earth was never a safe place for intruders. The probe's journey. The probe traveled through hyperspace, emerging just beyond the Sol system. At first, everything seemed normal. It adjusted its course, heading toward Earth while remaining cloaked. Its advanced scanners activated, sweeping the planet below. The first readings confused the Empire scientists. "Impossible," Dravik muttered as he studied the live feed. "This planet, it's normal." The council gathered in the war chamber, watching the transmission. Earth's cities bustled with life. Humans went about their daily lives, unaware of the probe's silent observation. There were no strange energy fields, no advanced technology, nothing that could explain the disappearance of two Salvath fleets. Dravik frowned. Could it be that we were mistaken? That Earth isn't dangerous at all? Then, the probe detected something unusual. A ripple in space. It was small at first, almost imperceptible. Then, it expanded. The stars around the probe distorted. A deep hum vibrated through its metal frame. The scientists on Scifi gasped as the probe's sensors picked up something, a presence. And then, a message appeared on their screens, not in their language, not in human language, but in something far older, something ancient and incomprehensible. For a brief moment, it translated itself. You are being watched. Then, the probe shut down. Not destroyed, not intercepted, just gone. The war chamber was silent. Dravik's hand shook. Your Majesty, something knows we are watching it. For the first time in his reign, Emperor Zoreth felt fear. The debate. The Imperial Council erupted into arguments. Some wanted to launch another attack. Others, like High Scholar Varen, insisted that Earth was beyond them. It's not just about the planet anymore, Varen said, his voice firm. Something is there, something that doesn't want us near. But what is it? A general demanded. A weapon? A life form? A god? No one had an answer. Finally, the Emperor raised his hand, silencing the room. Enough. We will not act blindly. If this force can destroy our fleets without a battle, then we must understand it before making another move. Varen nodded. Then we must seek knowledge beyond our empire. There are civilizations older than us. Perhaps they know the truth about Earth. Zoreth considered this, then gave a sharp nod. Send word to the Zorveth Dominion. They have studied the galaxy for millennia. If anyone knows what we are facing, it is them. A message was sent. The Empire waited. And far beyond their reach, something watched and waited too. A chilling response. Days later, the Zorveth Dominion answered. The message was brief. You have made a terrible mistake. Do not go near Earth again. Do not send ships. Do not send probes. Do not even speak of it. Forget the Sol system. If you value your empire, erase its name from your records. The room was silent as the message ended. Zoreth's fingers tightened around the armrest of his throne. And if we do not? Another transmission followed. This time, it contained a single image. A ruined planet. Burnt cities. Dead civilizations. The remains of what was once the Cathari homeworld. The message was clear. Earth was not just off-limits. It was protected. The great halls of the Salvath Empire were filled with silence. The Emperor's advisors and generals stood motionless, staring at the horrifying image on the main screen. The once mighty Cathari homeworld, now nothing more than a dead planet. No weapons had done this. No enemy fleets had conquered them. Something had simply erased them. And now, the Zorveth Dominion had given their warning. Forget about Earth. Do not return. Do not even speak of it. Emperor Zoreth's hands tightened into fists. His empire had never known fear. They had conquered thousands of worlds, crushed countless civilizations under their rule. And yet, an unseen force had humiliated them, twice. He would not accept it. We are the rulers of the stars, Zoreth growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. I will not cower before a primitive world. We must know the truth. His advisors exchanged uneasy glances. High Scholar Varen, the Empire's most knowledgeable historian, stepped forward cautiously. Your Majesty, if we continue this path, we may bring destruction upon ourselves. The Zorvath do not warn lightly. Zoreth's golden eyes burned with fury. Then we will seek answers elsewhere. If the Zorvath refuse to help, we will turn to the oldest beings in the galaxy, the Elders of Ivari. A ripple of shock passed through the room. The Ivari were not an empire. They did not conquer. They did not interfere. They were simply there, watching, existing since the dawn of time. If anyone knew what force protected Earth, it would be them. Zoreth raised his hand. Send an emissary. We will have our answers. A journey into the unknown. The imperial vessel Oracle was chosen for the mission. It was not a warship but a diplomatic cruiser, armed only with the best minds of the Salvath Empire. Among them was High Scholar Varen, tasked with gathering knowledge from the Oivari. As the ship entered the dark regions of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of any known civilization, an eerie stillness settled over the crew. Space itself felt wrong, as if something ancient was watching them. Days passed in uneasy silence until, at last, they arrived. The Oivari homeworld was unlike any planet they had ever seen. It was not made of rock or ice, but pure energy, shifting and pulsing like a living star. No fleets guarded it. No cities covered its surface. It was simply there. A voice, vast and eternal, echoed in their minds. You seek knowledge that was never meant for you. The crew shuddered. The voice did not come from a speaker. It was inside their very thoughts. High Scholar Varen stepped forward, trying to keep his voice steady. Great elders, we seek the truth about a world called Earth. Our fleets have disappeared. Our probes have been erased. What is it that protects this planet? For a long moment, there was silence. Then the voice returned. You were warned. Varen swallowed. Yes, but we must know why. Who protects Earth? Another silence. Then, the temperature inside the ship dropped. The lights dimmed. And then, the elders of Oivari spoke. Not who. What? A shiver ran through Varen's spine. Then what protects Earth? The stars outside flickered, shifting in ways that should not be possible. The voice of the elders seemed to stretch through time itself as they answered. It is the last safeguard, the final defense, a force older than your kind, older than the stars. It does not defend Earth. It defends something buried within it. Varen's breath caught. Buried. What do you mean? The Oivari hesitated, as if they themselves feared to speak of it. We will say no more. And then, without warning, the ship was back in Salvath space. No hyperspace jump. No travel time. One moment, they were in the dark reaches of the universe. The next, they were home. The elders had dismissed them, and their message was clear. Something was buried on Earth. A dangerous decision. When Varen reported back to the Emperor, the room was tense. The advisors, the generals, even Zorath himself, none of them spoke at first. Finally, the Emperor broke the silence. So Earth is not the threat. It is merely the shield for something greater. Varen nodded. That is what they implied, Your Majesty. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Zorath's expression. If Earth was merely the guardian of something hidden, then what was it protecting? He took a deep breath, then turned to his generals. We will send no more fleets, no more probes, but we will not walk away. We will send spies. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Spies? Varen asked carefully. Yes, Zorath said. We have failed to approach Earth from above. But if we send agents to live among the humans, to study them from within, we may uncover the secret they guard. The Emperor's decision was final. Within days, elite infiltrators were chosen. Advanced technology disguised them as human. They would blend in, gather intelligence, and discover the truth about Earth. It was a bold plan, a careful plan. But it would fail. Because the moment they stepped onto Earth, something noticed. Something ancient. Something awake. And it did not like being washed. The Salvath infiltrators arrived on Earth undetected. Their technology allowed them to blend in perfectly, appearing as ordinary humans. Each agent was assigned to different parts of the world. Cities, research centers, and even government institutions. Their mission was simple. Observe, gather information, and find out what Earth was hiding. Agent Vec was among them. His cover identity was that of a businessman in New York City. From a high-rise apartment, he monitored human society. At first, everything seemed normal. Humans were primitive compared to the Xalvath. Their technology was limited, their defenses weak. There were no signs of any powerful forces, yet something felt wrong. Vec had infiltrated dozens of planets before, but this time it was different. It wasn't the humans that unsettled him. It was the air around him, the presence he couldn't explain, as if something unseen was watching him, following him, waiting. At night, he felt it most. The city lights flickered strangely, shadows stretched in unnatural ways, and sometimes, when he looked in the mirror, his reflection seemed delayed, just for a fraction of a second. He reported his findings back to the Empire. No advanced technology detected, no planetary defense systems, but there is something. I cannot explain it. His message was received. No response came. An omen in the dark. In another part of the world, Agent Kale, disguised as a scientist, had infiltrated a human research facility. His task was to analyze Earth's history and look for clues about what the Ivari had warned them about. He found nothing unusual at first. Human records spoke of wars, discoveries, space exploration. But then, buried deep in forgotten archives, he found something chilling. Ancient texts, stories older than any human civilization, legends of watchers, beings that observed from the shadows, appearing only when the world was threatened. Some called them guardians, others called them the unseen ones. One particular passage made his blood run cold. They come when the stars align, when outsiders set foot where they do not belong. And then, the intruders are no more. Kale closed the file, his hands shaking. Could this be the force that had erased their fleets? Was it truly just a legend, or had humans recorded glimpses of something real? Before he could send his report, the lights in his lab flickered. The computer screen glitched, displaying strange symbols he did not understand. The temperature dropped. And then the whisper came. Not through his ears, inside his mind. Leave. Kale spun around. No one was there. His hands trembled as he typed a single message back to the Empire. We are not alone. Then the screen went black, and Kale was never heard from again. The vanishing. One by one, the Xalvath agents disappeared. Some vanished from their apartments in the middle of the night. Others were last seen walking into shadowed streets, never coming out again. A few managed to send their final transmissions before they, too, were silenced. They know we're here. Something is hunting us. I see them in the reflections. And then nothing. The Empire's high command panicked. The agents had been their last hope of uncovering Earth's secret. And now they were gone, without a trace, without a fight. The Emperor himself stood in the war chamber, watching the last message from Agent Vec play over and over again. A simple, chilling sentence before the transmission cut to static. We were never the hunters. We were the prey. The room was silent. No one spoke. For the first time, the Xalvath Empire felt something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not curiosity. Fear. The warning. Desperate for answers, Emperor Zorath sent another message to the Ivari. We ignored your warning. We sent our people to Earth. They are all gone. Tell us what is happening. This time, the Ivari responded immediately. Their answer was short. Your mistake was not sending your fleets. It was sending your minds. Zorath's breath caught. What do they mean? He whispered. The Ivari continued. The thing beneath Earth's surface does not guard with weapons. It guards with perception. It does not strike with force. It erases from memory. Once it notices you, you are already gone. The Emperor's blood ran cold. The Xalvath Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy they could not see, an enemy that did not fight, but simply erased. Then, a final message appeared on the Emperor's screen. Not from the Ivari. Not from any known source. It was written in perfect Xalvath language. You have been warned. This is your final chance. Leave Earth alone. The lights in the war chamber flickered. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed deeper. For the first time in the history of the Empire, the Emperor made a decision he never thought he would make. "We are pulling back," he said. His voice was quiet. "We will erase Earth from our records. We will never speak of it again." His generals did not protest, because in the deepest parts of their minds, they all felt it. Something was watching. Something was listening. And if they did not stop now soon, it would come for them, too. The halls of the Salvath Imperial Palace were silent. A decision had been made. Earth was off limits. The Emperor had ordered every record of the planet erased, every mention of it forbidden. No one would speak of Earth again. But it was already too late. Something had noticed them. Something had followed them home. Echoes of the lost. High Scholar Varen sat in his private study, his fingers trembling over the ancient texts he had retrieved from the Ivari archives. He could not sleep. He could not rest. His mind was filled with the last transmissions from their infiltrators, their desperate voices, their fear, their final words before they vanished. "They know we're here. Something is hunting us. I see them in the reflections." Varen shuddered. He had always believed in science, in knowledge, in reason. But Earth defied reason. The Empire had conquered countless worlds, yet nothing had ever erased their fleets, silenced their spies, or sent warnings in their own language. Something was different about this planet. Something ancient. Something alive. A whisper drifted through the room. Not a sound. A thought. "You should have listened." Varen's breath caught in his throat. He spun around. No one was there, but the shadows in the corner of the room seemed darker than before. His heart pounded. He activated his personal communicator, desperate to report his experience. But as he reached for the device, his reflection in the polished desk caught his eye. And it was staring at him. A fraction of a second delay, a slight smirk on its lips, while his own remained frozen in fear. Then, darkness. When the palace guards entered his study the next morning, High Scholar Varen was gone. His chair was overturned. His communicator lay on the floor. But there was no sign of struggle. No forced entry. No clues. Just emptiness, and the lingering feeling that something had been there. Watching. Waiting. The Emperor's fear. Emperor Zorath paced in his grand chamber, deep in thought. The reports of missing officers, strange shadows, and unexplained whispers were increasing. Something was happening to his people. Something beyond his control. The Ivari had warned him. He had ignored them. Now the consequences had begun. His generals stood before him, their faces pale with unease. "Your Majesty, High Scholar Varen has disappeared." Zorath clenched his fists. "The third high-ranking officer this week." "Yes," the general said quietly. "And there is more. Some of our data records have changed." Zorath narrowed his eyes. "Changed." The general hesitated, then pressed a button on his holo-tablet. A projection appeared, star charts of the Empire's conquests. Or at least, they were supposed to be. Dozens of planets were missing. Whole systems had vanished from their history logs. It was as if the Salvath Empire had never set foot on them. It was erasing them. Not with weapons. Not with force. With memory. Zorath's voice was barely above a whisper. "This is what happened to the Cathari." The room was silent. Everyone understood now. The Cathari had been powerful once. But they had been erased. Not just destroyed. Forgotten. And now, the same fate was creeping toward the Salvath. Zorath slammed his fist on the table. "We have to stop this. We must beg the Ivari for guidance." A new voice echoed in the room. "It is too late." The Emperor froze. His generals paled. The voice had not come from any communicator. It had come from nowhere. And everywhere. The lights flickered. The shadows deepened. And then the warning came. Not as a message. not as a threat, as a certainty. You were given a chance to leave. You did not. Now your fate is sealed. The room grew colder. The walls seemed to stretch and distort. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. The lights stabilized. The shadows returned to normal. But deep in their minds, they all felt it. Something had spoken. Something had judged them. And something had decided. The last attempt. Desperation took hold of the Emperor. He ordered an emergency gathering of the Empire's best scientists, historians, and strategists. There had to be a way to stop this. We must find a way to counter this force. The Emperor demanded. A weapon, a defense. But the scholars had no answers. The Wyveri told us, "It is not a weapon, Your Majesty," one scientist said shakily. "It is not an army or a fleet. It is a force beyond our understanding. It does not destroy its enemies." His hands trembled. It makes them unmade. Zoreth's rage turned to fear. He looked at his gathered leaders, his greatest minds, his strongest warriors, and he saw the same terror reflected in their eyes. They had lost before the war even began. Because the enemy did not fight. It simply erased, and it had already begun. The first forgotten days passed. More officers vanished. More records changed. Entire war campaigns were erased from history, as if they had never happened. Then, one day, something even worse occurred. The Emperor awoke and found his palace emptier than before. He could not explain it, but something felt wrong. His advisors, his guards, his servants, some of them were missing. He could not recall their names. He could not remember their faces. He knew they had existed, but now they were nothing. Not dead, not lost, simply never there. And he understood. Earth's protector had made its decision. The Salvath Empire had ignored the warnings. Now it was their turn to be forgotten. One by one, until nothing remained. The Salvath Empire was dying. Not with war, not with fire, but with silence. The great imperial capital, once filled with the endless movement of ships, now felt empty. Streets were quieter, halls darker. People walked past one another with an eerie sense of loss, as if they had forgotten something. Someone important, but no one could recall who. It had started slowly. A missing officer, a vanished scholar, a general whose name no one remembered. Now whole cities were disappearing from memory. Emperor Zoreth sat in his throne room, staring at the dim glow of the Empire's star map. It had once displayed 1,000 conquered worlds. Now only a handful remained. The rest had faded, erased from existence. He gritted his teeth. There must be a way to stop this. No one answered. He turned to his advisors, only to find that there were fewer than before. How many had stood in this very room with him days ago? 10, 20. Now, only 3 remained. And even as he looked at them, one of them faded. Not in a flash, not in pain. Simply gone, as if they had never been. The 2 remaining advisors did not even notice. Their minds had already adjusted. Zoreth slammed his fist on the table. No, I refuse to let this happen. But deep inside, he knew there was nothing he could do. The force that protected Earth was not an army. It was not a weapon. It was something beyond the understanding of any species in the galaxy. And now, it was undoing the Salvath, a desperate plea. The Emperor ordered his last surviving officers to send a distress signal to every remaining fleet, to every empire and species that still remembered them. But as the signal was sent, something terrible happened. The message did not leave the planet. The signal dissolved, unmade, before it could escape. The Empire was being erased from history itself. Zoreth fell to his knees. The Salvath had conquered the stars, crushed civilizations, and ruled without mercy. Yet now, they were powerless against something they could not fight. You were warned. The voice echoed in his mind. It was neither cruel nor angry. It was simply final. This was the judgment of Earth. This was the price of their arrogance. Zorath looked around the grand chamber. The walls had begun to fade, dissolving into nothing. The banners of the empire, the great symbols of his rule, gone. And then he realized something even more horrifying. He could not remember the name of his empire. He had ruled it for over a century. It had stood for thousands of years. It had conquered more worlds than any other in history. Yet now, as he tried to speak its name, nothing came. It was already forgotten. The end of the Xalvath. One by one, the last remaining members of the Xalvath Empire vanished. Some disappeared in their sleep. Others were erased while walking through the halls of the palace. Zorath held on as long as he could, refusing to submit. But in the end, it did not matter. The Empire had ignored the warnings. And now, the Empire was no more. Zorath took one last look at his hands. His fingers had begun to fade. His memories blurred. His mind struggled to hold on to who he was. And then, nothing. The silent universe. The galaxy continued as if nothing had happened. Merchants traded. Fleets traveled. Civilizations rose and fell. And yet, not a single species in the universe could recall the Xalvath Empire. No records. No ruins. No memory. It was as if they had never existed. Far away, Earth continued to turn beneath its golden sun. The humans, unaware of what had transpired, lived their lives in peace. They went to work, studied in schools, and watched the stars without fear. They did not know about the empire that had once threatened them. They did not need to. The unseen force that watched over their planet had ensured their safety. And should another empire dare to test Earth, it too would be forgotten.